Jean-Francois, we're going to start at I want to say the big story, which is kind of odd because typically by-elections are not necessarily big stories, especially in the middle of election cycles. But Jean Talon's been getting a lot of attention. Tell us what you see. Tell us what's changed, if anything, over the past, just say, week or so.
Well, the expectations is that it's going to be very close between the CAQ and the Parti québécois, who went all in. They really went all in. The premier was there many times. He again shot an ad for his candidate in the last few days, and so it's really going to give us the temperature, a real temperature of how much the CAQ is liked or disliked when the voters do not have to decide whether or not they will be reelected. So that's an important part of a by-election. You know that the fate of the government is not in the balance, but you can send a signal of contentment or discontentment.
Mm-hmm.
So how to read the results tonight? Just last year, at last year's election, the CAQ was 9 points ahead for the win. Now, tonight, if the CAQ wins, it is a win. A win is a win. But if they win with less than 9%, let's say 2 or 3, it will show that the decline is real, but is still not fatal. They're still in the majority situation. Now, if the PQ wins, whatever the margin, it's going to be like coming back from the cemetery for them. So even if they lose by a short margin, the PQ will still say it's part of their comeback trend. If you look at the others, the Liberal Party was in a bad shape in the last election, but they still got 13% of the vote. And it's a Liberal riding historically. So they need to get 13 or thereabouts to say that they're still weak, but they have a pulse. And the other one to look for is Québec solidaire, because they were third last year with 19%. It may very well be that they will be lower than 19% because the PQ is seen as so much the front runner to defeat the CAQ. That would be bad news for Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, who's been fragile since the last election. Mm-hmm. And we see a number of signs of fragility. If he cannot deliver at least the result he had at the last election, then it will seem that the next female co-spokesperson mm-hmm. may have more import than him in leading the party.
Something's gone wrong with Québec solidaire, it seems to me. And we learned from James Meny that as of 11 a.m. this morning, there'd been only 26% voter turnout. And for whatever reason, I immediately thought of Québec solidaire. Like I thought they might do a better job of getting their votes out. So it made me think that perhaps that's what's lacking. 26%, Jean-François, what do you make of that?
Well, we still had 22% of early voting. And then I saw 34% in the last hour, which okay. For a by-election is not bad.
That's not bad.
But you're right, Natasha, to point to Québec solidaire, because they need the Université Laval vote, and there's a CEGEP as well. But they didn't have as much time to organize than if the election had been in November or January or February, because the students just got in early September, and so they were pretty much in their finding their course and all that, and not in cruise speed. It organizes better when the students have been settled in their ways, and then they can branch out to politics. So it may hinder the ability of Québec solidaire to harness this vote, which is always difficult to harness. But thanks to Bernard Drinville, now we have voting booths in post-secondary institutions, which has been very good for Québec solidaire since then. I think they should have a Bernard Drinville prize for voting in the universities. And they have 34% of the 18 to 34 vote, which is mm-hmm. substantial. Mm-hmm. It means that 2/3 of the youth do not vote Québec solidaire, but still, they're first in that age group if they can get them to the polls.
So I have a question. I know they're not getting much traction at all, but Eric Duhem and the Conservatives, what do they stand to gain, if anything, in this vote? Let's say they surprise people. They're obviously not going to win here, Jean-François, but
No.
if they do better than expected, what does that say? Anything?
Well, last year they were at 10% in Jean Talon. This is not their turf, okay? This is higher class, higher middle class. This is not the Conservative turf, which is more lower middle class and working people. And so he knows that he's not going to be a star, but he has to at least match his 10%, maybe a little more. But even if he stays at 10%, it will mean that he could not harness the fury of those who have been betrayed on the third link by the Quebec government, or if not betrayed, at least disgusted by the way that a formal promise was broken with so much in a lackadaisical way, if I can use this beautiful word.
Okay. I want to get to another story which generated a lot of interest last week. Of course, everybody showed up, shaking hands and smiling and spending more money. Biggest Quebec private, I guess, investment in the history of this province into the Northvolt plant. And then I saw someone bring this up, and I noticed you put it in today. And that the question it becomes, where's the BAP? So the BAP is Quebec's environmental regulator on Northvolt, because we know that there will be emissions created here. And we have heard nothing from them on this, Jean-François?
Well, it was brought up on the next day, and it was Radio Canada that broke the story that the threshold for emissions that from the production of cathode had been lowered from 60,000 something to 50,000 something. According to Radio Canada, it was a demand from Northvolt that this be changed. The story from the government is that has nothing to do with it. It's just that we weren't in the battery sector before, and we set this new threshold, which is good for Northvolt and for the previous plant that had been announced prior at Bécancour. But it's very much in doubt if the change was not made because of Northvolt. Now, these Swedish guys say that they're so clean that the only emission they have is water vapor. Well, if that's the case, let's have a BAP and show them, there shouldn't be any problem. But clearly, my position and the position of Louis-Gilles Francoeur, who was a former VP at BAP since a couple of years ago, he said Friday that, if you don't have a BAP for the biggest manufacturing investment in the history of Quebec, then what is it for?
I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I just assumed that there would be a BAP involved in this. So what I'm taking from you, Jean-François, here is that they were just going to take it on their word. Oh no, we're all good, nothing to see here.
Yeah, like that's never happened in government before.
Never, and exactly so. And then Fitzgibbon really said, there might be a BAP for some element of the project. And then the premier said, no, it doesn't apply because they're below the threshold that we just changed, not because of them. If you believe that, I have a third link for you.
Where have you heard that before? All right, Jean-François, thank you. We'll talk to you again on Wednesday afternoon.
Wednesday.
Merci beaucoup.